Is that time of the year again? NFL draft season. We are 2 months away from the NFL draft, so today I'm going to be going over my first mock draft for the 2019 season. Of course, this is still going to change. We still have quite a bit of time until the draft, so I'm going to be going over a few more editions, but this is just my first one. We're going to start off with my first pick is the Arizona Cardinals. I think they're going to select Nick Bosa out of Ohio State. A lot of experts also think this. He's an edge, probably the best one for sure in the draft. There are lots of edges, though, that are going to be drafted in the first round, I do believe. 2017, 2018 stats. I mean, he didn't play a whole lot in 2018, so I decided to combine these stats. But 48 total tackles, 13 sacks. Very powerful guy. And Arizona really needs him. He's very dangerous. And really, their defensive line really has been the one part of this team that really has kind of struggled in the past few years. And Bosa will really help them, I do think. Arizona really needs him to help him on the edge. My number 2 pick from the 49ers is going to be Josh Allen. He's out of Kentucky. He's a linebacker last year. If you were an SEC fan and you played him, you probably heard him quite a bit because he had 88 total tackles and 17 sacks. This guy can fly all over the field on defense. He's very sneaky as well. I mean, he'll come right up behind you, and you won't even realize it. San Francisco needs an edge somewhere, and Allen could be just that. He's very fast and dangerous. So really, I think this would really help San Fran. But Josh Allen, really though, he can almost be a first pick. He is really that good. Number 3 pick for the Redskins. I think this is going to be the trade of the first round. I have only one trade in the first round, which is this one. They're going to trade with the Jets for the 3rd round pick, and they're going to get Kyler Murray. That is the question you guys are all likely looking for, is where is Kyler Murray going to go in this NFL draft? And I believe he's going to go to Washington. Really, with the Redskins, I think them trading up because of Alex Smith's injury. This is really the right move for them. I mean, with Smith getting older and his injury, I mean, with his knee, who knows how long it's going to take for him to be able to recover? And I think with Kyler Murray, very young, very talented, I think this is going to be a star quarterback in the future. The future is going to be bright for Washington with this guy. But yeah, I think Murray should be considered the best quarterback in this draft for sure. I mean, there's Haskins as well, but I do think Kyler Murray is the best quarterback in this draft. In Washington, he would really excel, especially if the receivers step up. I mean, Washington really isn't known for its receiving core, but if they can improve with the receivers, definitely the Redskins can be a team really to watch out for. Kyler Murray, I think he's going to be kind of like Baker Mayfield next year. And I mean, if Alex Smith does return, I believe that Alex Smith will start at first, then Kyler Murray will eventually work his way up there. Number 4 pick, the Oakland Raiders. They're going to get Montez Sweat out of Mississippi State. He's a defensive end. 53 total tackles, 12 sacks in 2018. Those are pretty good stats. Sweat had an outstanding final season at Mississippi State. And also with that, Oakland really needs a good defensive end. Really, their defensive line, I mean, you can pretty much say it about every part on their team last year. I mean, they struggled in almost every area. But yeah, definitely the defensive line will be somewhere to improve on. I think Montez will really help with that. Definitely has a lot of potential with being a young guy in Mississippi State. We saw him, he really performed well. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're going to select Quinnen Williams out of Alabama. He's defensive tackle, 21 total tackles, 8 sacks in 2018. Drafting Williams would really set up an extremely dangerous duo with Vita Vea. He was a 2018 first-round pick, and he was really a big standout for this Tampa team last year. I definitely think, though, if they can get Williams on that line as well, that really is going to be a very dangerous duo. It's going to be hard to stop, that is for sure. That defensive line next year, if they can get Williams, I definitely think that the Buccaneers are going to be a bit of a dangerous team on defense. But really on the offensive side is really where the Buccaneers struggle. If they can get that offense figured out, the Buccaneers can be a team to watch out for. Number 6, Giants. They're going to select Dwayne Haskins. This is where Haskins is going to go. I mean, not so really surprised. I think the Giants are for sure going to select a quarterback in the first round, unless probably the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks are already gone, which is highly unlikely. He's a quarterback. 2018 stats, he had 4,831 passing yards. That is an outstanding number right there. 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So really, those stats are pretty compared to Kyler Murray's. But yeah, that 4,800 passing yards, that is outstanding. Haskins is the second best quarterback in this draft. Someone would even argue that he's better than Kyler Murray. I don't think he's better than Kyler Murray, but he's definitely close. With Manning slowing down, though, and New York, I think Haskins will help them in the future. Would not be surprised to see him take over within the next couple of years. Next up at number 7, we have the Jaguars. I think they're going to pick Ed Oliver out of Houston. He's a defensive tackle, 54 tackles in 2018 with 3 sacks. He did have better seasons in 2016 and 2017. 2018 was more of a down year for him. But Jacksonville does need something on their defensive line that is going to be very helpful. And I think Ed Oliver is right for the job. Definitely has a ton of potential in him. If he can have seasons like he did in 2016 and 2017, definitely can be dangerous there. I do believe, though, Ed Oliver would be a pretty good pick for the Jaguars in this draft. Number 8, we have the Detroit Lions. I think they're going to get Greedy Williams out of LSU. He's a cornerback, 6'3", 184 pounds. But the thing is about him is Detroit's secondary is their main weak spot. We've not really, that is their main weak spot. We see teams throwing all over them all the time. And I do think, though, that with Greedy Williams in there, he will help lead their secondary. And I think getting Williams would really help a lot with their secondary. It can make it much less of a weak spot for this Lions team. Tons of potential in this guy. We've seen that several years before this. Next up, we've got the Buffalo Bills at number 9. The 9th pick, they're going to get Jonah Williams out of Alabama. He's an offensive tackle, very talented. Previously, Williams spent a season with Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll at Alabama. So they've already got Daboll, who knows how Jonah plays. This would be perfect for the Bills because they know how to use him. When you have a coach that previously coached you in college, that is really going to help you because they know how you play. They know how to use you, and so that's going to help a ton for this Bills team. It'd be a great pick for sure. Definitely a lot of potential, and there's a lot of players from Alabama that are big standouts and have tons of potential in the NFL. At number 10, the Denver Broncos, we have DK Metcalf out of Ole Miss. He's a wide receiver. I think that they're going to be going for a wide receiver in the first round just because of their receiver problem right now with Demaryius Thomas and of course, Emmanuel Sanders. But giving Flacco another great option at receiver would be a very smart move, I think. Flacco is more of a passer, and he's a decent passer. I wouldn't say he's a great one, but he's definitely decent. And I think getting Metcalf to be able to help him at receiver, that would help him a ton. You give him another good target, and definitely he's someone that I think is going to make some pretty big impacts in the future. So that's going to help Denver a ton. You also have Sutton and Hamilton at receiving. Those are your 3 main receivers out of Denver, and so they would all be very dangerous. For Flacco, whoever's starting, Keenum could even start, but we're going to assume it's Flacco right now. For him, he can use all 3 of those very well. If he can get a strategy in there, a way to play with them, I think that will help him a ton. Just because now, with anyone who has a weak secondary, this would really help Denver to be able to put some points up on their weak defense. At number 11, the Cincinnati Bengals, we have Devin White. He is also from LSU. He's a linebacker. Cincinnati's linebacking core is weak. They need someone great to do some work, and White would help them drastically. He could really help lead this Cincinnati linebacking core. And I do think that he's got a ton of potential as well. Potential is a word that I use a ton because, every player has potential to do something great. If you can just use that potential and be able to use it for something great, you're definitely going to be a dangerous player. And if you do have potential and you don't use it well, that is when you're a bust. But yeah, White would help them dramatically at the linebacker position. So definitely Devin White is going to be one of their top picks for the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 12, we have the Green Bay Packers. More of a down year last year. They're going to select Farrell out of Clemson. He's an edge. Of course, this Packers defense, they need something on defense that's going to give them a boost. Their defense was terrible last year. 55 tackles, 12 sacks for Farrell. Green Bay has a very weak defensive line as well that's been very injury prone. Farrell is going to help a lot with this, I do believe. We've seen their defensive line for the Green Bay extremely weak. And if you're having to get rid of Clay Matthews this offseason as well, you're really going to need someone to back him up. which would be Farrell. So I do believe that they're going to go for Farrell as their 12th pick. And at number 13, we have the Miami Dolphins. I think they're going to go for Jawan Taylor out of Florida. He's an offensive tackle. And considering Miami will likely go for Tua or Herbert at quarterback in the 2020 draft, I think this is going to be a smart move, because if you can draft an outstanding offensive tackle the year before you go for a quarterback, that would be a dirty smart move. Because if you can get a talented quarterback like Tua or Herbert out of Oregon, that would help you a ton. So I do think that they'll go for an offensive tackle. They could also go for Drew Lock, the Missouri quarterback. I don't think that's very likely. I think if somehow, some way, Haskins or let's say Kyler Murray, if they're not drafted up to this point, they're definitely going to draft one of those. It's either quarterback or offensive tackle, I think, for the Dolphins in their 13th pick. At number 14, we have the Falcons. I think they're going to draft Dalton Risner out of Kansas State. He's an offensive tackle. Atlanta needs some protection Atlanta needs protection from Matt Ryan. Their offensive line is one of their main weak spots. I think drafting Risner would help them a ton with that. Of course, out of Kansas State, this guy, we've seen quite a bit of him. He's been one of the main standouts out of Kansas State recently. I definitely think for the Falcons, if they can get some protection from Matt Ryan is a good quarterback, I do believe. But the thing is, their offensive line is absolutely terrible. And I mean, if you can be a great quarterback, like for example, like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, you can be a great quarterback, but when you don't have a good offensive line, that is detrimental, because you don't have any protection. You've only got like a second or two in the pocket, and then you got to start rolling out. It just does not work well when you do not have a good offensive line. I think Risner would help the Atlanta Falcons a ton with that. At number 15, we have the New York Jets. This is going to be after the trade with the Redskins. The Redskins would have this pick otherwise. They're going to select T.J. Hawkinson out of Iowa. He's a tight end, very talented. They've got quite a few good tight ends from Iowa. New York already has one great tight end with Herndon, but I think having two great tight ends would be even better for Darnold. He's more of a tight end kind of guy. He uses his tight ends very well, and we saw that quite a bit last year. Herndon was used quite a bit. I think if they can get Hawkinson in there, he'd really make this team and this offense much more dangerous, and I think it would help them a ton to be able to get Hawkinson in here. And Hawkinson, I mean, he has tons of potential. Definitely someone to watch out for in this draft. Number 16, we've got the Carolina Panthers. I think they're going to get Cody Ford out of Oklahoma. He is an offensive lineman. Carolina needs some protection for Cam Newton. This is kind of like the same situation as the Atlanta Falcons is, because Matt Ryan, Cam Newton. For Cam Newton, he doesn't have any protection at all. I mean, his offensive line is terrible. And I think if they can get Cody Ford in there, that would help them. It would help them quite a bit. They need to get someone to be able to help this team. And almost every year, his offensive lineman is a big reason for the struggles, for Cam Newton's struggles, for that matter. So yeah, definitely, if you can get Cody Ford in there, it would help you a ton. Number 17, we have the Cleveland Browns, a team that really surprised me in 2018. They ended up doing pretty good. I think this is going to be a very dangerous team in 2019. I mean, they got Kareem Hunt now. But anyway, back to this. They got Kelvin Harmon. That's who they're going to draft. Out of NC State, he's a wide receiver. If they can get another receiver in here, that would be interesting, because they've already got I mean, a great receiving core. And I think if you can get Harmon in there as well, for Baker Mayfield, that would be huge. I mean, he's got 81 receptions, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns. Outstanding stats out of Harmon. I think he's probably in the top 5 for receivers in this draft for sure. And we saw him at NC State last year. He did some really great things as well. Number 18 with the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to get Greg Little out of Ole Miss. He's an offensive tackle. Little has awesome pass blocking skills. That is one of the main places where he's going to help this team. Minnesota needs protection on the offensive line. And once again, this is another situation right here where the quarterback does not have protection, and they're getting in trouble because they don't have an offensive line to be able to help them. And I think if they can get Greg Little in there, this will help Cousins a ton. I mean, Cousins did very well at Washington. He didn't really do as well as I thought he would last year, but his offensive line was one of the main reasons why it was detrimental to him But yeah, Cousins will continue to struggle if they can't get the offensive line fixed. I think Greg Little will help them a ton with this. Number 19, we have the Tennessee Titans. They're going to get Brian Burns out of Florida State. He's an edge. Tennessee's defense, or the defensive line also, but their whole defense is just kind of down from recent years. If they can get Burns, that would be the edge that they need. He's fast and he has an awesome inside move that makes him very dangerous. We saw him at Florida State. Big standout there last year. But yeah, definitely Brian Burns is someone to consider for this Tennessee Titan team. Had some great stats last year. I never was able to put them on here because I had more reasons to say than put on stats. Yeah, definitely Brian Burns, someone great to have for Tennessee. I wouldn't be surprised though if AJ Brown went before Pittsburgh was on the clock. But he's out of Ole Miss. He's a wide receiver. Definitely, I think for the Steelers, this would be a correct guy to get. 85 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 2018. Great stats there. With being one of the best wide receivers in this draft, it will help with losing Antonio Brown a lot. It is highly likely that Antonio Brown will not be in Pittsburgh next year. So if you can get AJ Brown, that would help you as well. And you can get another receiver that definitely has a ton of potential and someone that will definitely help you in the future. And I definitely think that looking at those stats, he is very consistent. So definitely watch out for Brown. I think he is going to be someone that the Pittsburgh Steelers are really going to be wanting to go after. Number 21, we've got the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to select Hakeem Butler out of Iowa State. He's a wide receiver. Another great receiver in this draft. We've seen a lot of great receivers going into this draft. It's going to be really competitive to see these positions. 60 receptions, 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns. Also great stats there from Hakeem Butler. Pittsburgh will consider taking Butler as well, I do believe, but Seattle ends up getting him. I definitely think the Seahawks will go for a receiver as well. The receiving core is really weak. They need someone for Russell to be able to work with. I mean, Russell Wilson is an extremely talented quarterback. He deserves more than just a couple of wide receivers. I mean, they got Baldwin. That's really the only. You also got Lockett, but those are really the only standout receivers out of Seattle. So if you can get Butler in there as well, really would help this team. He's the type of receiver that Wilson really needs to succeed. Number 22, we the Baltimore Ravens, a team that did actually pretty well last year. They're going to get Rashawn Gary out of Michigan. He's a tight end. I considered putting Gary way higher than this. I thought it's a possibility that he could get selected much earlier than this, but I think that the Ravens will end up with him. Baltimore could lose Smith in free agency. That would be huge, but if you can draft Gary, that would help with losing Smith a lot and kind of replace him. And he is also someone who has a ton of potential. So out of Michigan, definitely someone to watch out for the Baltimore Ravens. Definitely one of the main candidates if he is still left at this point in the draft. Number 23, we have the Houston Texans. They're going to get Andre Dillard out of Washington State. He's an offensive tackle. Dillard has also great passing skills and upper-level athleticism that would really help Houston. A big opportunity here for the Texans. If they can get Dillard, really would help them. I also think, once again, Dillard is another player where I would not be surprised to see him go much earlier than the 23rd pick. But yeah, definitely he's got great passing block skills and upper level. I mean, he's really someone that has a ton of potential, so watch out for him as well. Number 24, we have the Oakland Raiders. This is a trade from Chicago previously. They're going to get J.J. Arcega-Whiteside out of Stanford. He's another receiver that's very talented. Oakland needs better receivers. They need a whole new offense, but they also need better receivers. If they can just get JJ for Carr to work with, it would help them a ton. I mean, Carr's also another great quarterback, but he does not have receivers. He does have Cooper. Cooper got traded. But he does have, what's his name? Jordy Nelson. I mean, he's the main standout receiver out of Oakland. If they can get JJ in here, I think that would help them a ton. And we saw him last year. He really helped this Stanford team. Even though they kind of struggled last year, he still made a pretty big impact for them. Number 25, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to get Lonnie Johnson out of Kentucky. He is a cornerback. Philadelphia will have tons of options here. I mean, this is probably the hardest selection to predict, just because the Eagles could go for basically almost every position possible. It's going to be really hard to pass up someone who's going to be able to comfortably line up with almost any receiver in the league. This is probably the best cornerback in this draft. He could be, I mean, it's arguable, but definitely he's way up there for one of the best cornerbacks in this draft. He is extremely quick, great skills, extremely talented, definitely someone that the Philadelphia Eagles, or almost any team that needs a quarterback, will definitely go for. At number 26, we've got the Indianapolis Colts, another team that did really well last year. I mean, they're at the 26th pick. Definitely different from last year, but they're going to get Byron Murphy, a cornerback out of Washington. Indianapolis, I think, will take Johnson if Philadelphia doesn't draft him. But if Philly does draft Johnson, then the Colts will take Murphy. So it's gonna be either way. I think both of these picks will either involve Murphy or Johnson. But yeah, I think Murphy is another dangerous, talented quarterback. He's very similar to how Johnson works. At number 27, we've got the Oakland Raiders. Once again, this is their third first-round pick. The Oakland Raiders are going to have 3 first-round picks this season. Definitely is going to help them a lot, considering this was probably one of the worst teams last year in the NFL. They're going to get Devin Bush. He's out of Michigan. He's a linebacker. Oakland really needs linebackers as well, and I think Bush would be perfect for them. They really need someone to lead their linebacking group who is very talented. Definitely Bush will be able to help with that. So yeah, watch out for Oakland to be able to take him. But yeah, anyway, next up we got the Los Angeles Chargers. Jerry Tillery is who I think they're going to get. He's out of Notre Dame. Defensive tackle. He can disappear for stretches of time, but when he is on, he shows that he has major potential. Very talented. This would give LA the edge that they need on the defensive line. I mean, the Chargers really have all they need. They got great receivers, great running backs. They have a great offense overall. Their defense, if they can get some good picks in this draft for their defense, it would help them an absolute ton. Number 29, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs. They got DeAndre Baker. I think this is who they're going to draft. He's out of Georgia. He is a cornerback. He'll be considered one of 3 of the best cornerbacks in this draft. He is quick, not hesitant, and gets his hands on plenty of footballs. We see him make interceptions all the time. I mean, probably 2/3 of the time when you hear Georgia getting an interception, it's probably Baker. We've seen this guy. He has an insane amount of interceptions. But yeah, I definitely think that the Chiefs are going to go for him. Definitely someone that the Chiefs are going to want to go for. I think they're going to go for a cornerback most likely. Their secondary is really where their main struggles are. At number 30, we've got the Green Bay Packers once again. This is a trade previously, and it was given to them by New Orleans. Nasir Adderley, I think out of Delaware. He's a safety. Definitely, I mean, out of Delaware, you'd probably think that he's kind of a blowover, but I definitely don't think so. I've watched a little bit of film on him. I just kind of wanted to see how good he was, because I heard lots of experts talking about him, and I was like, Delaware? I mean, how would you even get known from there? But definitely, I would say he's the best safety in this 2019 draft. Green Bay really needs a corner, and they really need a safety. They can make game-changing plays. He can make some interceptions, and we've seen at Delaware. From his stats, he's got an insane amount of interceptions as well. Adderley is the man to do that for sure for the Green Bay Packers. Number 31, we have the Los Angeles Rams. They're going to get Garrett Bradbury, NC State. He's an offensive center. And with the amount of zone running plays that the Rams run, Bradbury would really help with making those plays even more effective. And we know how well the Rams like to run the football. And I think if they can get Bradbury in there, he's really going to help like Todd Gurley and Anderson, if he's still going to be around. He's really going to help this team a lot to be able to run the ball even more effectively. Number 32, our final pick in this first mock draft, Draymond Jones will be who New England picks. He is out of Ohio State. Lots of players out of Ohio State are very talented. He's a defensive tackle. New England may lose Flowers in free agency. If you can draft Jones, that'll fill in Flowers' position with someone very talented and skilled, and someone who has a ton of potential, and someone who really, I think, is going to be very dangerous on the defensive line. If you can get Jones in there, definitely is something good for them. I mean, Flowers, we've seen him for several years. He's been a very good defensive lineman. So definitely, I think that the Patriots are going to want to go for Jones in this draft for their 32nd pick. Well, anyway, that is it for this mock draft. Let me know your guys' thoughts on these in the comments below. Definitely, there will be some disagreements on here. I'm prepared for them. Give me all you got. I'll try to continue with my argument. But anyway, that's it for this first mock draft. We'll be doing, I believe, 3 more possibly. We still have a couple more months until the draft begins. So stay tuned for those. Thank you guys all for watching. Once again, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. I'd like to hear what you guys think. Stay tuned for more, and I will see you all later.